Hello and welcome to Gapeys Garden. Today we're going to take a tour of the front and backyard and take a look at what's blooming right now at the end of June, both perennials and annuals. We're going to start with the annuals we planted as companions in our tomato bed, starting with our first zinnia to open. This is the Oklahoma Ivory. It's a very light yellow, almost white. We have a few different colors of chrysanthemum that I started from seed this year. It's from a Fancy Pants mix, and this one is just really neat. We've got another one on the other side of this bed, and it has some different colors. And this is what it looks like when it first opens up, and then as it ages, it gets more light colored. Our first marigold of this season just opened up today. This one is a Cracker Jack marigold. I've got a couple of these planted in this bed with the tomatoes, but this one is first to open. We have a lot of alyssum that volunteered from last year. I grew it from seed and it was a mix of different colors, but it looks like only the white ones have volunteered. I have pulled out the ones that were coming up in the front of this bed because I've got a lot of different things that I planted and I didn't want it to compete with those. But we've also got some dandelions here. These are pink dandelions and they just finished blooming. Another flower we have volunteering in the same bed as the alyssum is chamomile. So this always volunteers in the yard every year, but this is the first time I think it's volunteered in this bed, which is probably a good place for it. We have a couple of California poppies. This one is probably the most common color or variety. It's a really bright orange. This one volunteered and volunteers every year. And then we have this California poppy. This is one I grew from seed this year called Thai Silk Pink Champagne. Even though it looks like it's coming out white, I was expecting it to be pink. Oops, this flower is actually just about done, and the chickens are wanting to come out. Another volunteer flower that's come up is the borage. So I grew this from seed 1 year, and I haven't had to start any from seed again because it just reseeds like crazy, and it's the bees' absolute favorite flower in the garden. We've got some volunteer potatoes that have started blooming. We've got 3 different varieties because we've got 3 different colored flowers. There's a light purple there. This one's got dark purple flowers. And then we've got one back here that's got white flowers. Our first sunflower is starting to open. This variety is called Panache. And this is the first time I've grown this one, but it's got some interesting kind of petals. They're kind of narrow and long. We'll have to see what it looks like when it fully opens. We've got our first Cosmo open. We've got 5 different varieties here, but that's the only one that's bloomed so far. This variety is called Xena, and it's kind of got a purple and looks like a little bit of a yellowish hue. That's really pretty. Here we've got Coral Fountain Amaranth, and this guy never got very tall. It's only about 1.5 feet tall maybe, but it's got some really long strings of flowers. This is Tower Coral Clarkia, and I grew this from seed for the first time this year, and I really like it, and I think I'll definitely grow it again, but I want to try some different colors. This one is a little too bright pink for me. This here is Meadow Foam, and it seems to reseed itself every year. For some reason in the middle or kind of on the end of this path. I've got a nice bed here that it could go into, but it doesn't seem to like it. It seems to prefer growing in these rocks. But if you make soaps or lotions, you're probably familiar with meadow foam oil, and that is where it comes from. I think it's a native of either Oregon or California. Now let's take a look at some of the perennials we have in the garden. This is verbena, which for some reason I don't recall planting this. So this is a pretty new bed, so it must have been planted last year. Maybe I planted it and I just forgot. My absolute favorite flower in the garden this year is this beautiful hollyhock. And this thing is humongous. It is just about taller than the chicken run, which is, I believe, 6 feet tall. But this is the first year it's bloomed. I planted it last year as a little garden start that I got from one of my plant sale customers, and I can't recall who it was, but I just love it. This here is the Obscura Sunset Foxglove that I started from seed, I think 2 years ago, but I've got this growing in the bed with one of my fig trees. This one is the Latarula, and as you can see, it's got some nice size figs on it, and I'll be doing a fig update here before too long. Our coneflower, or echinacea as it's also called, is just starting to open up. We've got tons of blooms on this plant. This is Rose Campione, and if you're familiar with this flower, you probably recognize that bright neon pink color because that's the more traditional color. But this other one is a white variety, which actually has kind of, some of them have a lot of pink in it, but it's really pretty and it looks really nice against this smoke bush. I don't have very many flowering trees, but this one is just blooming. This one is called Asian Stewardia, and it gets these white flowers with a yellow center that kind of remind me of egg yolks, but most of the flowers are closed right now, but they do open up a lot wider. We've got a few different types of dianthus here, and this one is really pretty and unique. And then one of my favorites is this one here that just gets a bunch of different shades of pink. We've also got some light pink ones, but we've got those all over in this bed. The lavender is just starting to bloom. This variety is called Phenomenal, and it gets pretty large. And then this one next to it is called Silver Mist, and the foliage on this one is kind of more of a silvery light green color. Our Veronica is just starting to flower. I started this from seed last year, and it came back this year, and it's really pretty. It's only got 1 or 2 stalks coming out, but it looks like there's several blooms that will be coming out of that. We've got 2 of these big honeysuckle vines, and it is just kind of finishing up blooming, I think, but it does look like there's a few new ones that are starting to come out, but most of the flowers on it are spent. This is a creeping thyme that is just finishing up flowering, I think, but this is really hard to keep weeds out of, so we're constantly picking weeds out of it, which is kind of a pain, but it is so pretty. The only poppy I seem to be able to grow are California poppies and whatever this yellow one is. I've tried growing several other varieties, but they never seem to come up. We have several ground cover sedums that are starting to bloom. I'm not sure what variety they are, but this one is got white flowers, and then we've got this one here just starting that's got yellow flowers. The newest addition to the perennial garden are these hardy geraniums. This variety is called Philippe Vapel, and then we've got another one over here. This one's a little bit lighter color. This one is called Biancovo. I have a few different varieties of hostas, but this one is the only one that's blooming right now. This one is called Dream Queen, and some of the leaves have like a variegation in them, kind of in the middle. But this variety happens to be slug resistant, which I had no idea until I got some more hostas and the slugs love them. This astrantia is one of my favorite perennial flowers that I have, and it loves the shade, and it looks like the bees love it too. We've got a bumblebee all over it, but it's got really pretty flowers, and it doesn't spread too badly, but occasionally it'll self-seed. Wow, this yellow corydalis is just loving the north side shady area of the garden. It is spreading like crazy. I guess there's also a blue variety of corydalis, and hopefully one day I'll get some of that. Here we have a couple pretty daylilies. We have some milkweed that is just starting to bloom. This is right in front of our beehives. We don't get swallowtail butterflies, but the bees do like it. This pretty purple coral bell is one of several perennials that I got from Gilbert H. Wild and P. Allen Smith for a beginning of the pandemic campaign that they called Plant for Victory, but it's flowering, or at least just starting to. We've got some pretty flowers just starting to open up. I don't think any of the other things I got from the campaign are blooming right now. Actually, I did get these daylilies from the campaign, and this one is just starting to open. So this is really the first year that these daylilies have opened, and I planted them about, I think, 3 years ago. This here is a type of lamium. It's got really neat variegated leaves. There's also a lamium variety that is also called dead nettle, and that one is very much a weed, and it does spread like crazy, but this particular variety doesn't seem to spread as much, and the bees really like it. Here we have some feverfew, and it reseeds itself quite easily, so you have to be careful when you grow it, but the good news is it doesn't have a very big root system, so it's pretty easy to pull out where you don't want it. But I have this pretty decent sized patch that I let grow here in an area in the front yard. And feverfew does have some medicinal properties. It's, I believe, good for headaches and a few other ailments. Here's a look at our wildflower patch that we started a few years ago now, but it has become 99% yarrow. We do have a few things mixed in. Some Shasta daisies have come up. We've got a couple of those. The coneflower here is just getting ready to bloom. It hasn't opened up quite yet. I did plant some strawflower in here that I started from seed, and it's just about getting ready to bloom, but that's an annual. Let's see what else. We have some showy milkweed in here. So this milkweed has really big fuzzy leaves, but the flowers are kind of large for a milkweed. Really pretty. And we do have, I think this is the only really dark pink yarrow in this whole field. And we've also got, let's see if we can get a little bit closer look. There is one bee balm right there in the middle of the yarrow patch. Well, that's it for the blooms this June. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Let me know what favorite flower is blooming in your yard. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.